Good morning and welcome back from that short break, and of course that update from Stephen Mbide on the traffic situation across Kampala and metropolitan areas for those that are making their way into the city to be able to go ahead with the day's hustle. We are in the Kickstarter segment of the show, and the debate is on the bomb threats that are rocking the nation, Kampala in particular. What is it for physical security planning across the region? I'll be introducing my guest, and of course we shall be joined later by others. But before I do that, a preamble of what we are dealing with. Police and other security organs foiled a bomb attack on a church in Kampala and arrested the man suspected of trying to activate the explosive device among worshippers over the weekend. On a similar note, yesterday, 2 bombs in different locations were reportedly tapped. This has caused a security threat that has many Ugandans bewildered. Why is the nation on the radar of bombers or terrorists at this particular moment in time? In the studio, I have Dr. Tolit Atiya, a security analyst, to help us understand what is happening and how the security organs are handling this particular latest challenge. A very warm welcome to the program, Dr. Tolit.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm very well.
Thank you. Now, the blanket situation we have right now is one of a threat that is potent, one that has been seen to be actually could have been carried out if the events on Saturday or Sunday should be at the cathedral in Rubaga that belongs to the prominent pastor Robert Kanja is anything to go by. Let me not first delve into the detonation of that particular device, but look at the overview of the security situation and the threat of bombs. Many times when the statements are released by the security, they come on the backdrop of alerts and intelligence information that originates mainly from international circles, especially the US Embassy and the UK, as it advises its citizens to be on the lookout. That should, or rather always, sends the signal that something is about to happen. What goes on within security circles? Because we seemed to know something was going to happen. Why do we know something is going to happen and fail to pinpoint many times?
Thanks for that. And you see, usually what happens, like in this case, is because the question then would be, what is intelligence? Intelligence, in a sense, is the business of gathering information, filtering it, and then delivering it to the concerned in a manner that should probably preempt about 3 action points. 1, put you on the ready.
Okay.
2, pinpoint, clearly pinpoint. What is and what could be, and that is around the push and pull factors, probably what is prompting this. So then the third is the action you're going to take, and that action is usually informed by that by that backgrounding. So is it something new? Is it something you already know? Is it something you're already dealing with? And you see, interestingly, by the way, it's not only, say, in Uganda or these African countries or states or developing states where we even think that the intelligence is that not that sophisticated. Because I was amazed to learn, for instance, if you look at the bombing of 9/11. After the bombing of 9/11, there was a huge debate in the Senate. And there was information pointing to the fact that actually there had been preemptive intelligence, that something like this was going to happen or could happen. And there were talks amongst those concerned, but nothing was done, and eventually it happened. And you see, that is what the terrorists prides in, because the key objective of terror, of terrorism, or the is to inflict, first of all, fear. Their actions is to enlist fear. But they also do it in a manner that they keep throwing off tidbits of information, because the whole idea is to hold you on a tenterhook, and then boom, they go. So the debate after the aftermath of 9/11 was, is there somebody responsible? Did somebody do their job? How could this happen? But it happened. And when you look at the history of all other terror, because the challenge that terrorism is being presented like it is something very new.
No, it isn't.
But it's not, because we know that actually in the history of terrorism, I think the first terror attack was in India, when between just before the departure of the colonialists. So at that point, two brothers, decided to, stage a terror act and all that. But that one was clearly politically motivated. And slowly over time, we are now beginning to see now, new nuances in terrorism for both the motivation, how they get recruited, and all this. But when you bring this back home, you begin to see that. For instance, we know that we are engaged in the Congo, and we engage with the ADF. And if you look at the exposition of the ADF and their structure, they actually not even, let alone the exposition and structure, the ADF has actually been underlined as a terror organization in Uganda, and other countries. So the fact that we are in the Congo, and given the changing nature of war or conflict, it is obvious that they are going to adopt asymmetrical, tendencies. It is quite clear that with the pressure on the front, they are going to devise tactics to try and move the battle, to the front line in the capitals. So the security guys definitely are aware about this. The question then is just how ready can you be? I mean, what they have done is commendable. Because here, like you just said, supposing it had happened, So for me, the big question is not really, is it going to happen? Would have it happened? We know terror is a new form of war.
As a new form of war.
And it is here.
All right. Thank you very much for that initial submission, Dr. Aita. Allow me to welcome to the show Grace Matsiko, a security analyst too. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, viewers. I'm glad to join this brain here.
All right. Interesting. Listening to Dr. Aita speaking, it reinforces an argument that you have given before on the show about Uganda's security posture. I can bet that you must be happy about the improved security posture, especially when it comes to how ready we are dealing with any other threat. We've been able to neutralize 2 in a row in a space of 36 hours, especially after a week or so of information running around that there was an imminent attack that would happen. This is commendable, and I don't expect you today to put the security organs on the spot.
Thank you very much, moderator. I think, yeah, really this is a commendable effort. And quite often, there are many activities that our security agencies do carry out, but people don't know about them.
That's right.
Especially in averting this level of crime. One is that they try not to put the information out to alarm the public. But there are a lot of, like, for instance, fewer people knew that actually there was a similar incident, almost a planned activity at our border with Tanzania, Tukula. So that information was kept away from, it was sparked by the Rubaga Cathedral thing. But again, we shouldn't be in a celebratory mood, because if we celebrate, then we lose the vigor with the vigilance.
That's right.
And these guys, of course, they are not up to maybe capturing the state, but
causing as much mayhem as they can.
To continue putting everyone at our tenterhooks and making everyone uneasy. That's what they enjoy. Otherwise, for the time ADF has been destabilizing this country, we've never seen them ask, probably like we've seen other organizations, like anyway, like ARA tried to put out a vague political demands. But for the ADF, we've not seen anything coming out. So this is probably a security nuisance we have to stay with, however bad it is. And we have to really, as much as commending our security agencies, we shouldn't go into celebratory mode.
All right, gentlemen, we shall delve into the greater dynamics of security in the region and why Uganda finds itself particularly on the spot and vulnerable. But there is an emerging trend, the ability for operatives of terror networks who are in sleeper cells, for example, within Kampala and the greater metropolitan area, to manufacture bombs as easily as it appears. That is another huge problem that we do have, away from the fact that the greater terror threat is still imminent. These explosive devices, improvised is the word, and people are able to quickly manufacture them or put them together to create a potentially disastrous bomb. It also tells of yet again another problem. Dr. Atiya, for purposes of how the police has put this out, especially after arresting Chintu Abdul Rahman, a 28-year-old resident of Mbizinya village in Buwama sub-county in Mpigi district, do you think the ability of people to quickly come up with these could also precipitate the number of events or terror attacks in the country?
Okay, the word may not be to precipitate, because in its very ordinary sense, precipitate would ordinarily mean that you look at it in terms of quantum, that it increases.
It increases.
Yeah, and in a sense, yes, but also no. And why am I saying this? Because I think it is important to get back to understanding the motivations behind some of these. Because like we've pointed out that certainly the security architecture, including, actually, first of all, the war architecture has changed. You know, if I'm to drag you to a little bit of history.
Very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. Right from the times changed rapidly. First of all, the end of the Cold War. At the Cold War, what we simply saw, the international relation dictate at that time was anticipated threat from state to state, okay? Because we were still within the nexus of, struggle, colonialism and all that, territory and sovereignty. We quickly moved away from that. And once that ended, states started consolidating. And the concept of security at that point changed, because the question is, what is security? Security, vaguely, is basically freedom from fear or physical violence. Then a little later, the term sort of broadened. It now includes fear, absence of fear from the freedom of also want. And want here is defined largely as socioeconomic, interests and demands, because people need food, people need shelter, people need economic, success to exist.
And opportunities.
And opportunities. And this is basically what states are set out to do. Now, oftentimes, like my colleague Matsiko pointed out, you find that security agencies do a lot and contribute towards many things. But they have remained in the old coach, where security is treated more or less, like, in a lot of secrecy, which is important, but it is critical at this time with the changed nature, particularly looking at what you're saying. With the arrival of ICT, improved technologies, internet and all that, the architecture has changed. Information is out there. And let me tell you something. This morning before I came here, I wrote a teaser question on the internet in Google, and I was asked, I just said, how to make a bomb in Uganda. And when I checked, there had been over 867 hits.
People are asking
how to make a bomb. 867 this morning before I came. So I just wanted to try and find out. And now this even gets exacerbated, just like you were trying to point out, because we have a very young population and we have a tech-savvy population. We have children, we have kids who are on these gadgets all the time. So what information are they finding in these gadgets? That is why I am arguing that the security architecture has changed. Our security agencies now need to move away, from the confine of the coach. The war is now more of psychological. Who influences? Because the terror promoters are out throwing information on how to get these things done. The only way you can counter a mind war is to counter it with information. For instance, let me give you an example.
Very quickly.
You go downtown. There's so many shops selling these chemicals, school chemicals, and because these improvisions are not anything extraordinary. They are the same materials we use in ordinary day life. Potassium, sodium bicarbonates, and all these things. And these things are open in the shops. Now, an ordinary shopkeeper,
we shall be very cautious to share information on what chemicals can be used to come up with a bomb.
An ordinary shopkeeper. You see, an ordinary shopkeeper, how does he know that I have come to buy, maybe potassium or something, and I simply say I'm taking it to a school. So this awareness needs to move to enlist vigilancy in the country.
All right, let's go to Mr. Matsiko there, who seems to be itching to interject on that particular subject.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I've seen recent police going into details of these components. You are putting information out there for people to experiment and source and do whatever they want. I've seen some countries, like there are cases which are not reported. They don't go into the details.
For example, I would desist if I were the police officer trying to briefed the media, I would desist mentioning that 57 4-inch nails were found, because that tells somebody, hey, all along nails can
You
do
mean
this
they are
thing.
here? They are available.
No, but
These are
honestly,
the ones
but gentlemen, no. This information is there.
All right, that is understandable. Let's listen to
But you
Matsiko.
see, this information is there, right? So, but you know, when we keep hammering it, you know, we are trying to emphasize a point in the negative way. So even those who are not alert to the fact that, hey, you mean, you know, we've seen so many cases. For instance, some countries even ban media from doing stories about suicide cases, because, you know, someone jumped from a floor of 10 floor, a building of 10 floors, and you just trying basically telling people like this is how it's done. So someone just finds the solution to their problems. Back to your question, you mentioned the issue of availability, of how dangerous this trend has become of having homemade devices, explosives. You know, this was expected, and in security actually they knew, because initially they were the bombs were manufactured outside of this country, but as the region started forming coalition against terrorism, their spaces, cross-border spaces, started reducing. And then they came in that technology that, look, you can carry out an activity within Uganda. You can improvise, you can do whatever. Because as the information is out there, but also their trainers, they also knew they had to, rather than getting problems at the borders, you can go and purchase from the local shops, and then you have the. And you may also remember that at the start of terror activities within this country, some years ago, we used not have people volunteering to carry out attacks. It was done by foreign agents and the sales. But recently we are now seeing radicalization of ordinary Ugandans. You know, like this suspect who was picked the other day at the Miracle Center Church. He's a Ugandan. He's just one.
He's a resident of Mbizinya.
Yeah, so
the guy you see every day, perhaps.
Exactly. So this shows how serious the problem is and how it has ingrained within our society. It's something we are not going to take away today. It's something which has to be right from the policy levels, looking at the socio-economic or whatever political. Though it has, terrorism has got less of a political, but it's more or less socio-economic. So we need to, there's need to look at this thing, understanding it, and how do we address it. But it's something we are not going to, we are going to be with it.
Okay.
Because in any case, they are not putting any demand that it can be looked at. They are not putting any negotiations. They are just having fun.
Maybe the posturing should be read for what it is. According to the police, when Kintu Abdurrahman was interrogated, he revealed that there were conspirators, and there were as many as 6. And those other 5 are on the run, and the police is apparently on the manhunt for these. But it's understood they could be working under the fact that there are increasing pressures on the ADF, like Dr. Aita had alluded to earlier. But there is also concern that across the Horn of Africa, the role of the Uganda People's Defense Forces has faced criticism from locals within that region, but most importantly, offered to fan the flames of anger from groups like Al-Shabaab, and that they are increasingly looking to respond and put the point forward that, hey, we do not like the fact that you have taken ground and you're holding us by the stronghold. in our own territory. It's a school of thought that is being advanced. So we are facing the fact that pressure on the ADF in the Democratic Republic of Congo is intense as a result of the operation, but also across the Horn of Africa, there is a reaction to what the UPDF is doing. I need your 2 cents on that, both of you. Let me begin with Dr. Atiya.
Yeah, what you're saying is right, because you see, you can't, and I've said this before, you see, you cannot talk about security without looking at it like any other public goods. It falls within the realm of governance. You know, just like health, education, the key question now is, yes, we have security.
That's right.
But what quality of security? And once you pose that question, then you force a conversation. What is the quality of security that we're having? Because it's public investment that we are putting in this security. And like I said, in the old school, the way security is structured, packaged, and presented, there is a lot of mysticism. But that cannot continue because the nature of war has changed. The war, asymmetrical wars and proxy wars like we are seeing, once people, because nobody is going to take, find the nearest forest, you know, to try and encamp himself. People are now getting radicalized on their phones, in schools, you know. So the question is, the security elements, both in Uganda and the region, because communication is also fast. Today, just you leave Nairobi at 8 in the night, in the next morning you're in Kampala. You know, so security needs to understand this whole thing from, like you said, a geopolitical perspective, a geoeconomic perspective. We have already pointed out the ADF in Congo are being pursued. They are going to respond. How are they responding? We have presence in Somalia. We know that certainly, for a fact, the cells, the radicalized and the terror cells in Somalia are huge. You know, both linked to Al-Shabaab, linked to ISIS. We've just had a crisis in Ethiopia. There is a crisis in Sudan. So what are also our political responses? How do we fit within those nexuses? In all this, we're going to get backlashes. Now, the backlashes will not be a surprise. The surprise is that what trajectory will they take? And then the question is, are we prepared, you know, for the various trajectories or those nuances? And that is why I'm saying that there is a big job, you know, for our security chaps. One, since the nature, the theater has changed, we need to see it is now more of a mind. We now need to see more investments. There is an element of security which today is called PSYOPs, psychological operations.
Okay.
You know? Intelligence now needs to spend time in understanding what the push factors can be. We are saying we have unemployed youth. We are saying the economic times are hard. The shilling is dropping. The same thing is happening in Europe. People used to run to Europe for economic safe haven. But even the welfare systems in that country are failing. People are coming back.
Okay.
So in all this, what information are we getting? Because this information should inform policy.
Okay.
So the policies we are seeing, are they speaking to these situations? I'm very reluctant to say yes, because right now we are faced with a completely failed public service, you know.
All right, that's an introduction of a twist to the debate that might get anybody out there who has been following the security aspects a little bit off guard, but we shall understand how failure to put the service sector right could be one of the issues that are making us vulnerable to the threat of terror. I had wanted Grace Matsiko to also register 2 cents on that before we go for the break, but time is not our best ally, so allow me transition into the break. When we return, I will begin with you and you will tell us exactly what ought or needs to be done with regard to how prepared Uganda's security organs are in dealing with the threat of terror. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. You are watching Morning at NTV, and it is the Kickstarter, and we are discussing the security threat that the country is grappling with. Right now, I can give you an update. According to the Uganda police and other security agencies, a massive security blanket has been rolled out across the central region, particularly Kampala and its metropolitan areas, following 2 incidents on Sunday at the Rubaga Miracle Cathedral that belongs to the pastor Robert Kayanja, but as well another incident in Tete where improvised devices were discovered in a house. The police is dealing with this and investigations are ongoing. One of the suspects who was arrested at the Miracle Center has apparently revealed that there were as many as 6 conspirators in this particular mission. Now, whether there was greater work that was going on to inflict heavy damage on the population remains to be seen. The police is on top of that. Here in studio, I have 2 security analysts and commentators who are helping us get to terms with what could be the complex issues within the security circles for the average man and me, myself. Dr. Tolit Atiya is a security analyst. Many thanks for the perspective. And of course, Grace Matsiko, seasoned security expert here. I had promised going into the break that Grace Matsiko, you would give us your 2 cents on the fact that the challenges that the security forces are facing right now are many and varied because of the changing architecture of terror itself, including the fact that there are tech-savvy operators who could as well be able to come up with the devices very easily without necessarily having to transport them for detection by the police. You are immersed in this any more than I can understand. So, educate us.
Thank you, moderator. One is that agreeably, there has been a change in what we've been seeing before in the fight against terrorism. The actors have transformed into they are every now and then they are upgrading their level of operations.
That's right.
But also that we must appreciate that a lot has changed within our security structure and setup, that now we are relying now more on technology. Because had we remained the way we were before, we wouldn't have achieved this much faster.
That's right.
To the extent that they can even do a minute by minute monitoring of these activities that they create, like you've seen the event at Rubaga Cathedral. It's something that was first of all followed up for some days up to the last minute before the action could be taken. And that ordinarily probably they would have even taken out that guy before he even reaches the cathedral. Yeah. But they were too patient that they wanted this man alive because he was the most active person in the network they were following on that day and time. This shows I've seen some people actually trying to even to water down this activity, this improvement in security.
What do you mean, before you continue on that particular aspect, what do you mean it's a modus operandi for the security to see where this is going to end And that's where the danger is for the average person who might be listening to you right now, that the security can afford to look at this as though it's a sequence that they are connecting together. But the threat of destruction is imminent, and perhaps there is also a possibility that you could leave and then the next minute of your monitoring of these steps causes mayhem.
Very true. I think that's why our security agencies had technical details, had more information. They were, in other words, probably they had an upper hand in this situation.
Okay.
They knew, first of all, this person. Of course, there's a lot of surveillance, electronic, in the skies and even everywhere. So they must have had a lot of information, a lot of detail, and they were confident on what they were doing. To the extent that one, they knew there was information, of course, that there were many that had dispersed, but to various places. Some may have even taken cover immediately after the information started popping up. But this one became more active, and he had a lot of information that and indeed, as it turned out, is that they finally he revealed much more than if he had been taken out faster or in panic. Of course, it's a lot of risk, but from what we gather is that the intelligence had much more information, a lot of information that cannot be revealed to the public at the moment. That they were confident on what they were doing. And, you know, it's in most cases that we talk about when an incident has happened, but we don't look at what was happening
the sequence
in
of
the
events
kitchen of those intelligence organs. What were they doing? You know, so it's really, I think it shows how technology has helped in making, in breaking through some of these complicated security operations.
All right, I think you do agree, Dr. Atiya, with Grace Matsiko's submission there. But allow me to transition from that into the physical security planning processes and the challenges that we face as a country as a result of our inability, for example, to demarcate where and the how of where the targets could be, or who could even target a particular place and not the other. There was information prior to this incident on Sunday that places around Kira and the greater Wakiso area were particularly vulnerable. And of course, at that point in time, it looked either as an attempt to focus attention to crowded happening places and very little attention perhaps to the church, and this is where most people congregate. I do not know whether the physical planning structure right now offers us the opportunity to work seamlessly if we are to counter a threat. Just like you see response to fire outbreaks, some of the things are, you know, constrained by the physical aspects. I don't know how far or how much this affects security. You could just take us through that.
Yeah, probably just building on what Matsiko has pointed out. Technology has been a big game changer in this. And of course, it has both its positives and negatives. In relation to the old physical planning, so to speak, I think there are real challenges, as you put it. And that is why I keep insisting that these institutions, including the security institutions, need to they need to forge a conversation. I mean, look at Kampala. if you look at the disposition of petrol stations in Kampala, it is basically, it's
a time bomb.
It's a time bomb, you know, because the man who heads physical planning in Kampala is busy signing off, you know, signing off
contract after contract.
Contract after contract.
In fact, the other day somebody was joking that you could wake up in the morning and there's a new petrol station in your neighborhood.
Yes, exactly. Because what are the considerations they take place?
Yeah.
They take into place, including elements of security. You know, I know that, for instance, if you looked at the ordinary, I mean, the very first architectural plan for Kampala city, I am sure we have certain designated places, even subways, you know, and walkways, which were an architecture that incorporated security in the past, allowing passageways for, I mean, crisis is imminent anytime. How do VIPs get out? You know, just God forbid. Just imagine you got into a situation where you really needed to evacuate, with the kind of jams we are having. Look at Bombo Road. If you had 3 petrol stations hooked up, what would happen? That takes you to the point I want to make. The point is that we are living in an information era. There is now something called big data. You know, do we have sections of these agencies that occupy themselves with data, with information, big information, and try to build scenarios 5, 10 years, 15 years from now? There are sections of this town which are almost impassable.
Inaccessible by
and yet, when you see the structures there, what amazes me is that we are so convinced, and that's why I was telling you that there is this need to try and draw the connection between physical security and security of want. We need to see more investments that is able to ameliorate this situation of security of want. People who are in desperation. Matsiko just talked about radicalization. It's increased. It's on its increase. The question is, what is pushing people that direction? Can we do a disaggregated study? Say the young man who was got yesterday, I mean the other day,
on Sunday,
and the ones on the run. Their age patterns, can it tell us something? Their school background, can it tell us something? Their places of origin, can it? This is where we should be going. But you're seeing investment in hardware.
Okay. Well, when the police says that he is helping in investigations and he's been interrogated to the extent that he has revealed his conspirators who are being hunted for, tells that maybe they have an opportunity to consider the kind of approach that Dr. Atiya is suggesting. Not so? So would you, for example, say that the Uganda police and all these agencies ought to adopt a more psychosocial approach to analysis of the why, the when, the how, and the what could be of all these scenarios? Do we have the capacity to? Do we have the experts within the force? Or are we occupying positions for the sake of signing off?
Actually, I think we shouldn't put only that issue to only the security agencies, police and intelligence. It requires a whole holistic government approach. Right, even from Parliament to the President.
Okay.
To even these Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Fiscal Planning, Gender, all these ministries must be involved. For instance, how can we allow our city become a ghetto? You see? And yet someone is there. All these arms of government are seeing this. How can we allow a fuel tanker drive through such a busy town with all these threats?
On Kampala Road.
On Kampala Road. Where there is Parliament, there is Office of the President, everyone out here. The trucks are passing. They are offloading fuel. How do we allow construction companies only operating during the day, as if their office businesses only, closing the roads and everyone is put on hold? How do we allow these convoys of VIPs pushing people off the road, congesting them into another corner of where they are vulnerable?
Okay.
See, how do we allow...
Very interesting.
How do we allow... like now, if you went to this area of Chiseka area there,
borders,
they are just blowing up music everywhere in every corner of that place. That even when there is an attack, you cannot even know.
You might think it's another set of
yes, the music or maybe someone, you know. So we are just like sleeping on the job.
Interesting.
It's unbelievable. When you look at our planning, even if now, like for instance, I put even situated now at the moment, because these guys, like for instance, this group that I got, they are going into suburbs, places with no address. You cannot tell that this person is staying in a plot A, B, C, D. He's just in a house, in a one-roomed house, behind someone, mama, gundizi, place and shop, and you only go by that. You know, it's where you get the address. I mean, it's terrible. We shouldn't be in that situation. So what is being done is that let's work as a government. This government addresses this issue. Let's also involve the communities. But I've seen also there was as much as we can talk about the government, what are the Ugandans doing?
I was just about to ask you that question about the synchronized approach that the Uganda police seeks with communities in being able to address some of these security challenges. Of course, we've seen over the years what is being described as community policing and how effectively it actually works when it comes to information sharing. But again, it is fraught with challenges where those that share information are first of all considered suspects. People sharing information are afraid they will be asked, how come you have that information? And that is also a challenge. So how do you give the population confidence that you're not going to turn around and put the, the lens on them for sharing information or even suspicion? How is that supposed to work?
But I think we are just trying to sleep on our responsibility as Ugandans. We have this tendency that we don't mind who is my next neighbor. My neighbor where I'm staying, there was a house there, and I had never seen a storied house. I'd never seen anyone going in, and it was just queer. And I was asking the area leadership. Whoa, he said, "No, some man, he's a rich man. He just comes to us in Mugaga." I said, "No, why?" Until I alerted one of the agencies, I said, this house will. Checking, then they discovered it had some other businesses, which were it was a crime. They were, but people are not bothered. Okay. So I think let's take it because security is for everyone on a personal level and also on a national level. Let's try to get involved as Ugandans. Let's do our part. Let's report. If you report police and it has not helped, there are other offices you can go to. You can go to RDC, who is the head of security in that area. You can go to a chairman. If the chairman fails to do that, you can even report to a priest. Because the good thing now, everyone like...
report to a priest?
We have got... yes, true. They can deliver information. We have, in Uganda, we have dropped this Gambanogo. Everyone like is connected. So look for any person. You can't fail to get someone who's connected and you report.
Okay.
Because we are all working for our safety, for the security of our country, and also as on a personal level, that we must be safe.
All right, gentlemen, I needed this particular conversation to end on the note of community policing and how Ugandans at individual level can play a greater part. Dr. Tolit Atiya, I would love you to wrap this up in 60 broadcasting seconds. Please try.
I'll just,
try.
Quickly.
Yeah.
For me, it's about really two things. The notion of security is expanded to include the environment, to include other threats, floods and all this. We have a situation where we are seeing, because of the challenges of climate change and all this, we are seeing a huge movement from the rural to the urban.
That's right.
That poses a challenge to the urban and changes the security situation, which we need to respond to. The other is the question of vigilance, as we're trying to discuss. But you see, vigilance is a two-way thing. It's a give and take. You are not going to have a youth who is delinquent, a youth who is hungry, a youth who is angry, a youth who is not seeing promise, you know, in the government, and you think you're going to mobilize him. So the captain of this ship needs to ensure that he is speaking with every component, you know, of government. And the very last thing is that since the security architecture has changed, it has moved more to a mind game. We need to see more investments in the software. We need to see security agents and officers becoming consumers, you know, of processed information. We are producing a lot of research. Universities are producing a lot of research.
You're talking of trends. The fact that collaboration should be improved.
Yes, on trends, on features that we need, because we have a young population which could be a dividend, but can also become a cake of powder. Okay. Just to let the fire that, you know,